One day I pray you love someone. I pray you love her so much. When you close your eyes, you see her face. I want you to know what it's like to love someone. To truly love someone. Before I take her from you.
Constantine, why do you only criticize men? So Robert Baratheon, Tyrion, and Jorah get criticism for being abusers, groomers, and degenerates, but you give a pass to the female characters in A Song of Ice and Fire just because they're women? Well, to that I say, game on. And it's time for you to put your money where your comments are, because today we are going over one of the most beloved, terrible characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. Cersei Lannister. But before I get into why this character is so terrible, and why at times I can't stand her, we must first go over the sympathetic reasons that Cersei gets to some of these points to begin with. And to put it simply, like I have said in previous videos, Cersei Lannister is a victim of misogyny and the general abusive manner of the realm towards women.
I should wear the armor, and you the gown. I shall wear this like a badge of honor.
Wear it in silence, or I'll honor you again.
From the moment she was born, she's placed on a lower level than her twin brother Jaime, just on behalf of her gender. And this causes her much anger and bitterness later on in life. And the fact that Cersei is always placed beneath the men in her life is what largely causes a lot of her abusive habits later on. Beyond that, a lot of her abusive tendencies come from the abuse and trauma that she has experienced in her own life. Her father Tywin was an abusive, power-hungry man that treated her as nothing more than a political pawn and a sexual pawn from a young age.
You'll marry Sir Loras.
I will not.
The boy is heir to High Garden. Tyrion will secure the north, you will secure the Reach.
No, I won't do it.
Yes, you will. You're still fertile, you need to marry again and breed.
I am...
You're my daughter! You will do as I command, and you will marry Loras Tyrell.
Father, don't make me do it again, please.
Not another word.
This is exactly why later on in Cersei's life, she becomes a power-hungry woman who craves to be just like her father. Confusing fear for respect, and not understanding that her abusive and toxic way of life is the very thing that is destroying her. This makes a lot of sense, considering the fact that in the real world, children of abuse often start to show some similarities to their abusers. Often called the cycle of violence, parents will often imprint trauma onto their children, and then those children will take that trauma and pass it down to the next generation, continuing the cycle. This makes Cersei both a victim and a victimizer of the toxic ideals of Tywin Lannister. A victim for receiving them, but a victimizer for passing them forward. And this is a common theme for her, considering she does the same thing with Robert Baratheon. Cersei is periodically sexually assaulted by Robert Baratheon throughout their marriage. These vile moments would leave her in both physical and emotional pain. Cersei Lannister is a victim of Robert Baratheon, but her method of dealing with this abuse isn't finding ways to properly cope and deal with her trauma, but just to pass it forward and repeat these same actions that were done to her. She does this with the reasoning that men did it and stayed in power, so why can't she? Not understanding that Robert's gluttonous and lustful personality is what ultimately destroyed him. It's no coincidence that as time went on and Robert drank and lusted more, his power began to decline alongside his health. which is exactly what Cersei does in A Feast for Crows. In her anger and lust for power, she succumbs to the same sins as Robert, constantly drinking and lusting, causing her to gain weight, lose her wits, and be manipulated by the people around her, primarily due to the fact that she's constantly mentally impaired. So with that being said, in many instances, Cersei Lannister is a sympathetic character. She is a product of abuse, and much of her toxic habits can be attributed to other people. But here is where I feel myself differing from many Cersei apologists. There is a very fine line between understanding and sympathizing with a character, while simultaneously knowing that they are an adult. They do have agency, and in their own stories they have made active decisions to become worse people and not better ones. And that is why I cannot stand Cersei Lannister. The first thing about Cersei that I just can't stand and wished more people talked about is the way in which she grooms Lancel Lannister. In A Clash of Kings, it is revealed that in the time that Jaime was away, Cersei Lannister needed a new play toy to keep herself busy. So she decided to groom her 16-year-old cousin, Lancel, when she herself was not only twice his age at 32, but also his senior in terms of power. Beyond that, Cersei doesn't even respect him as an individual, only using him as a reflection of herself. It's this weird and twisted dynamic where it almost feels like Cersei is just trying to have intercourse with a version of herself rather than Lancel or a real person. This is an aspect of Cersei's character that I don't see many people covering, and I really can't understand why. Lancel is forced to have sex with Cersei often, and if he doesn't, he will face harsh repercussions. This is a gross and vile abuse of power that mentally scars Lancel for the remainder of the story. And just generally speaking, this is a terribly brutal example of Cersei taking some of the abuse that she received from someone else and passing it forward. And Cersei knows this is bad. That is why she is shamed by her actions when Jaime returns. She knows what she's doing is wrong, but excuses her actions with, well, if he did it, why can't I? It's a childish and silly outlook on one's actions and one's life. Beyond that, there is also the wild moment when Cersei sexually abuses Tyaina in order to feel like Robert Baratheon himself. Cersei is very aggressive in a physical and sexual manner with her on the basis of wanting to be placed in the position of her abuser. She literally says that her hair was as dark as Robert's, even down to the ones between her legs. This leads to a very uncomfortable scene where Cersei does things to Tyaina not for her own pleasure, but to mimic Robert, to understand to try and comprehend what he gained from the situation. And what she discovered is it was power. The power to be in control, to be the one in charge. That is what Cersei loved, not the feeling of intimacy with another person. Which brings us to one of the most interesting aspects about Cersei as a character. Cersei doesn't treat other women very well. Cersei, being in the position of power that she is, doesn't use her power to try and better the lives of the women around her. In fact, she does the opposite, constantly trying to tear the other powerful women down around her, that way she can sit alone at the top. It is this toxic and prideful arrogance that only Cersei Lannister can have. This occurs with Sansa and Marjorie in the main series, but also dates all the way back to when she killed her innocent friend just for the sake of making sure that a prophecy wouldn't come true. And on the topic of prophecy, it's no secret that George is using Cersei to demonstrate what a self-fulfilling prophecy is. A self-fulfilling prophecy is exactly what it sounds like. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction that comes true at least in part or as a result of that person's belief or expectation that it will come true to begin with. Cersei lives her whole life fearful of this prophecy. This fear leads to paranoia, which leads to her to being a murderous psycho, which will then create her Valancourt in Jaime. Also, funny enough, depending on who you think will be the queen to cast Cersei down, Cersei also self-fulfills this aspect of the prophecy as well. If it ends up being Sansa, Cersei took a massive role in building the foundations for what will be the future political titan, Sansa Stark. Her abuse, judgment, and occasional advice to Sansa is something that she absorbed as a child, and I believe that this will come back around and be a net negative for Cersei overall, eventually playing a role in her own destruction. The next thing that I want to talk about regarding my criticism of Cersei Lannister is her Walk of Atonement. Cersei's Walk of Atonement is one of the most interesting cases of justice in A Song of Ice and Fire, because it's justice but not really. Cersei's walk is incredibly vile in both theory and application. It's this incredibly misogynistic and disrespectful punishment that exists solely to degrade her and her position as a woman in power. But on the other hand, there is an incredible amount of irony regarding the way she feels and thinks throughout her Walk of Atonement. While walking, Cersei notices that many of the small folk that have been shoved into the gutter of King's Landing are naked and dirty. There are children missing pants, men without shirts, and women in rags. And Cersei sees them and doesn't understand that the shame that she's feeling in this moment, the filth, the disrespect, the disgust, is just the average everyday experience for a regular person in King's Landing. Even though the way in which it's occurring is wrong due to the fact that the Walk of Atonement isn't even addressing Cersei's main sins, in this moment, Cersei is getting to truly experience what the system that she inspires to be in control of does and has been doing to people on a daily basis for hundreds of years. And for me, this all comes full circle when Cersei loses sight of the Red Keep entirely. During her walk, there is this point where the walls get so close together that the Red Keep is removed from Cersei's line of sight, and she's surrounded by this darkness and filth. It's at this point that she steps into a giant pothole-like hole in the road that's filled with urine. And then she scrapes her legs, which gets the urine into the wounds. And this is when Cersei Lannister breaks. All of the pride is zapped from her, with her now begging and screaming and crying all the way back to the Red Keep. And while I definitely can sympathize with the cruelty on display by the Faith of the Seven and the Seven Kingdoms as a whole, at the same time, I have to acknowledge that this hole in the ground being here in the first place, this darkness that Cersei finds herself consumed by, the urine that she falls into, is all a byproduct of Cersei and the rest of the people in power neglecting the small folk. And for Cersei in particular, she is a character that is just simply never given a single care to anyone in the world that wasn't herself. Even her love interests are mere toys that Cersei uses to either strengthen her position or kind of just use them like weird love-making toys. But in this moment, Cersei is broken by the very thing that she has been perpetuating for decades. And in my opinion, this moment where Cersei breaks after stepping into the urine is one of the best moments in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, because George R.R. Martin finds a way to make you sympathize with a character who is essentially suffering by virtue of her own mistakes and own messed up personality. Again, there are other aspects at play here, such as the misogyny in Westeros, but Cersei is partly to blame for what she is currently going through as well. And what makes this all the more worse is Cersei has just always been like this. Even as a child, well, granted, much of this blame does fall into Tywin for being a neglectful father, Cersei was still just an evil person, killing her best friend and tormenting her brother Tyrion for just existing. And this video isn't even mentioning the children and innocent people that Cersei kills just on the basis of they might get in her way in the future. Take Robert's bastards, for example. Just out here killing innocent children. Flat out. Cersei Lannister, while definitely winning over a bit of sympathy from the fandom, is a deplorable, evil monster that actively destroys and ruins the lives of good people simply because she is power hungry. And if I'm being quite honest, in terms of overall damage caused, she is up there for one of the most destructive people in Westeros. And it's time people started talking about her for what she is. A character that has been a victim in the past, a character that has suffered abuse, a character that has been through so much, but when push comes to shove, she is a monster who doesn't want to change. In fact, her only goal is to double down, to get worse, and to cause more destruction just as long as she gets to be at the top of all of it. Now, I just want to say, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, but I want to have a little chat about these videos that I have been doing. I have done a fair amount of why I hate this character videos over the last month, and I've also done some sympathetic videos regarding some of the same characters. I need people to understand that with many of these videos, I am only focusing on specific aspects of that character. So in the Why I Hate Tyrion video, or the Why I Hate Khal Drogo video, there are sympathetic reasons, like the ones I gave for Cersei today, that I could have given for Tyrion. It's just my objective with that video was not to go over the sympathies, just to go over the things that I don't like and the things that I find monstrous about these individuals. But with that being said, moving forward, I want to do my character analysis more like this, where I don't just focus on one aspect of the character, but focus on the entire scope of that character. I feel it is more genuine and more honest, so moving forward I might actually have to go back and make sympathetic versions of the videos that I have already made. Because while I feel it's very important to understand that these people are monstrous, it is equally important to understand how these monsters got to be in this position in the first place, how logically they have been corrupted by the world, or how their own illogical emotions and evil ended up taking over and consuming them. I feel long-term that will create far more interesting content from this page and more genuine content, especially with my channel reaching more groups of people. I want people to have a full comprehension and understanding of these characters and how I truly do feel about them, not just one side of the picture compared to the other. But with all that being said, again, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below what kind of videos you want to see from me in the future, whether it be other character analysis or just different videos in general. And while you're there, feel free to check out and join my Discord server. I really do mean this, no joke. I take video ideas from my server every single day. So if you join that server and you have a video idea, you can @ me, tell me what kind of video you want to see, and you can expect, more likely than not, that video will be released within a week or two of you recommending it. So again, if that's something you're interested in, please join, let me know what you want to see, and with all that being said, I hope you have an amazing day. Peace.